welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe ancient spiritual ideas and, cutting-edge science could actually be talking about the same thing? The same, like, mind-bending cosmic events?
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into something that feels, well, pulled from both a spiritual text and a sci-fi movie. We're talking Last Judgment and the disintegration of matter.
It's really fascinating stuff because concepts laid out, decades ago in this spiritual work, the Grail Message,
Right, by Aboriginal.
exactly, penned early 20th century, offering these deep insights into, well, universal laws. They find these really striking parallels with brand new discoveries in astrophysics, especially, how stars live and die,
So our mission today.
is pretty much to explore those connections, connect the dots, you could say, between that spiritual insight and what scientists are actually observing, help you see the bigger picture of
Yeah.
the universe and maybe your place in it too.
And our main source here, it's Dr. Richard Steinpak's book.
Right. The Inconceivable, Here It Happens.
Yeah, and he really digs into it, compares the Grail Message, with what top astrophysicists are actually saying, observations, theories.
People like Ziegel, Ditforth, Taylor.
Exactly. So, yeah, prepare for some surprising facts, maybe a few aha moments that could shake up how you see reality a bit.
Definitely.
We're going to explore how the ultimate fate of cosmic matter, from its huge beginning to its, well, inconceivable end, how that mirrors the journey of the human spirit itself. Okay, so that term, Last Judgment, I think for a lot of us, it conjures up these, well, kind of scary images, right? Trumpets, fire, some big dramatic, maybe arbitrary divine act.
That's the traditional picture, absolutely. Often quite fear-based, but the Grail Message, it offers a totally different angle.
How so?
Well, it sees the Last Judgment not as like a miracle or something imposed from outside, but as a completely natural process, something that happens totally according to the laws of creation, immutable laws.
Natural.
Yeah, and a key idea here is that the world of matter, the physical universe, it isn't eternal. It wasn't always here. It won't always be here in this form.
Right, it cycles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It cycles through coming into being, disintegration and reformation. It's just part of how the cosmos works, like stars being born and dying. It's built in.
So less like a sudden punishment, more like cause and effect on a cosmic scale. That's a big shift. But where do we fit in, the human spirit in this huge cycle?
Well, the Grail Message describes the human spirit as a kind of spiritual seed that's planted here in this material world.
For purpose.
Yeah, the purpose is to mature, to grow, and crucially, to sort of extricate itself from matter, to rise above it before matter itself hits its apparent end. It's disintegration.
And if it doesn't?
Well, then the spirit risks getting pulled into that disintegration process along with matter. And we need to be clear here. Disintegration isn't the same as, say, decomposition.
Okay, what's the difference?
Decomposition is small scale, like a log rotting in the forest, right? It's the end of one specific physical form. Disintegration, though, that's the end of the vastness of matter itself, returning it all to some kind of primeval, formless state. It's way beyond anything we can really imagine or experience.
Wow. That's mind-bending. Okay, let's pivot to the science then, because this is where it gets really interesting, how the observations start to, well, echo these ideas.
Absolutely. For decades now, especially with radio telescopes, astronomers have been finding things that just blew their minds. Stuff way beyond the old white dwarfs and red giants.
Like what?
Things like quasars, pulsars, neutron stars. At first, scientists were just, well, stumped. Gustav Andreas Deman called quasars the most puzzling and revolutionary objects. Felix Jervich-Ziegel admitted, we are still far from even partly comprehending them.
And the big mystery was their density, right? Just how packed together they were.
Immense density, yeah. That analogy from Hoymar v. Ditforth really paints a picture. He said, a piece the size of a matchbox, if you put it on Earth, would immediately break through the Earth's crust, not coming to rest until it reached the center of the Earth.
Unbelievable. A matchbox heavier than a mountain, basically.
Pretty much. Scientists started using terms like overdense and degenerated matter. That's Volker Weidemann's term. Now, here's the really striking thing.
The parallel.
Yeah. The Grail Message, written about 40 years before these discoveries, specifically mentioned that gross matter has levels that are much denser and heavier. And it talked about the overripeness of matter, leading to its disintegration.
40 years before.
About that, yeah. So you have two completely different sources. One spiritual insight, one hard science, both pointing to this extreme state of matter, something beyond the threshold of normality. It's a really powerful conceptual link, don't you think?
It really is. It makes you think. And, okay, as we're talking about these immense cosmic forces, the Grail Message, it seems to bring it right back down to us. To the individual spirit, it suggests a deep connection.
A very profound connection. It says the human spirit, while it's here in the world of matter, actually takes part in its great and internal rotating movement.
So we're part of the flow.
We are. And as matter itself evolves through its cycles, the spirit within it does too, until it reaches this kind of boundary line, a point where the part of creation we inhabit slowly drifts toward disintegration.
Okay, and when it talks about the material world here, it's not just our physical bodies.
No, that's important. It includes the gross material world, our physical bodies, yes, but also what it calls ethereal matter. This forms our soul bodies, sort of like cloaks for the spirit itself. Science mainly sees the gross matter, obviously. The Grail Message describes both and how they influence the spirit's path.
But this whole idea of drifting towards disintegration, it's not meant as, like, a threat, is it? Like, be good or else.
No, not at all. The text emphasizes it's not a horrifying threat of, eternal damnation. It's describing natural, lawful outcomes. Consequences based on the spirit's own free will, its choices, its direction.
So consequences, not punishment?
Exactly. It talks about spiritual gravitation. If you have a serious longing for truth and light, that striving makes you spiritually pure, more luminous, and that condition naturally helps you detach from dense matter. It sort of drives you upwards.
And the opposite.
Conversely, he who believes only in matter keeps himself bound to matter by his conviction.
Yeah.
Your focus, your belief, literally ties you to that level, which, raises a pretty big question for all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, how does my inner state, what I truly long for, affect my connection to the physical world and ultimately my fate in these big cosmic cycles?
That's the crux of it. Your inner orientation matters, cosmically speaking.
Okay, let's go back to those quasars for a second. Taman also said they were the brightest objects in the universe, radiating like 100 times more light than a whole galaxy, despite being small. How does that fit?
Well, one way to see it is as this tremendous withdrawal of light from these overdense degenerated stars.
Ah, so the light isn't just being bright, it's leaving something.
Potentially, yeah. And the Grail Message links this withdrawing light to energy, a spiritual nature. It suggests something spiritual, some kind of vital essence, is actually leaving these dying stars in huge quantities.
Oh.
And this observation becomes what the Grail Message calls an urgent admonition for us. It says, "Then, however, it is high time for all human spirits, which are still within the world of matter, to make haste and improve themselves."
Because the process is underway.
Because the process is underway, yes. Now, both science and the Grail Message agree on this fundamental law of equilibrium in stars.
Yeah.
This balance, right? Gravity pulls in, atomic reactions push out.
The star holds itself up.
Until it can't. If matter gets too dense, that equilibrium breaks down. Violently.
And that's the collapse, the implosion. You said scientists even struggle to describe it without sounding like sci-fi.
They do. Felix Jurevich Eagle basically says, look, this sounds crazy, but he describes gravitational collapse. Gravity just overwhelms everything. Radiation pressure can't stop it. The star literally falls together like a house of cards.
And the density goes up?
Through the roof. To an incredible solidification. That number, 10 to the power of 30 grams per cubic centimeter, it's just astronomical. And dit for its description of the speed.
The 1 second collapse.
Yeah. Within a period of about 1 second, the whole star, which was still planet-sized, collapses into a volume between 10 to 20 kilometers in diameter. A planetary body crushed to the size of a city. Instantly.
It's almost impossible to picture. And there's a limit for this, right? A critical mass.
There is. Science calculates it at about 1.44 times the mass of our sun. If a dying star's core is heavier than that, collapse is inevitable.
1.44. You mentioned the number 12 connection here.
Yes, it's fascinating. 1.44 is 1.2 times 1.2. And 12, well, it pops up everywhere in systems of complete order, doesn't it?
Zodiac, months, disciples.
Right, the time, sacred geometry, the heavenly Jerusalem. 12 signifies a kind of perfect, stable structure. 12 times 12, 144, represents an insurmountable measure of completeness.
So exceeding 1.44. It's like breaking that fundamental order.
That's the implication. You exceed the limit, you break the equilibrium, and catastrophe follows. The Grail Message puts it poetically, what is false must collapse on itself, disintegrate, and turn to dust.
And the speed within a second. It echoes that line from the Grail Message too, doesn't it? You are judged even before you are able to stammer a single word of excuse.
The parallels in suddenness are striking. Now, after this collapse, there's often a massive explosion in the supernova.
Right, that's the spectacular part we see.
Yeah, about a tenth of the star's mass gets blasted out, shining brighter than hundreds of millions of suns. But what's left behind is that collapsed core, a star's worth of mass, maybe more, squeezed into that tiny 10-20-kilometer ball.
And that remnant, that's what becomes the black hole, the dramatic climax.
That's the next stage, yes, the final separation. Scientists like Ditfurth, Dance, Ziegel, Weidman, they all describe it. The gravity of this collapsed object is just so immense.
That light can't escape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not even for photons of light to leave its gravitational field. The star effectively becomes invisible. A black hole, utterly cut off from the outside universe.
So scientifically speaking, it really is a final separation, light and darkness.
Purely astrophysically, yes. A boundary is crossed. And the Grail Message, it says, then the division between light and darkness will be finally accomplished and the judgment fulfilled. The alignment is pretty stark.
And for a human spirit still caught up in matter at that point.
It means, according to the text, a final decision. Either the spirit is uplifted towards the light, or it will remain bound in their base nature and get drawn towards disintegration, along with the collapsing matter.
We need to be clear, though, being incarnated, being in a body, that's a temporary binding, right, for learning.
Absolutely. That's part of the intended path for maturity. The issue here is remaining tied to disintegrating matter. That's seen as the final result of wrong development, a failure to progress.
Okay. And the science mentions that any light we do see comes from the outer layers, the stuff not quite caught yet, while the black hole itself expands its influence. Does the Grail Message have anything like that?
It does talk about a loosening in the surrounding structures as the core process intensifies. And the black hole's gravity, as Jack L. Seldowich described it, doesn't just trap light, it actively swallows any light which comes too near.
Like a cosmic vacuum cleaner.
In a way. And this idea from the Grail Message, this gravity of the darkness, finds this incredibly direct physical echo in the black hole, where extreme gravity literally creates darkness. Sir Fred Hoyle said such an object shuts itself off from the universe through its own tremendous gravity.
It seals itself away.
Which connects right back to those warnings from Abdrushan about spirits who sink into that death-dealing horror. There you shall be bound in an inescapable grip. Again, not presented as a punishment, but as the end point of heading in a certain direction. An inescapable fate if you go too far down that path. John Taylor even adds, if something falls in, there's no longer any possibility for him ever to leave it again.
It's a point of no return. Okay, so after this final separation, after matter gets swallowed by this darkness, what actually happens to it and to the spirit that's still bound?
The Grail Message is stark. Where disintegration begins, all matter loses its form. It becomes formless.
And for the spirit?
For a bound spirit, its ethereal bodies, those soul cloaks we mentioned, they remain subject to the changes now beginning, enduring what's described as the most painful disintegration covering thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
Leading to a loss of self-consciousness, the unique personality, a disintegration of the image of God within, and ultimately what's termed spiritual death. The spirit disperses back into primordial spiritual seed, an undoing of its journey.
That's incredibly bleak, the total loss of identity. And does science describe a similar loss of form for the matter itself?
It absolutely does. Scientists like Ditfurth, Dance, Libby detail this atomic devastation. First, the electron shells collapse. Then the atomic nucleus itself gets crushed.
The core of the atom.
Yes. Electrons and protons are forced together, transforming into neutrons. You end up with this bizarre, uniform material called neutronium. And crucially, all chemical multiplicity thus ceases. All the different elements gone.
So no more gold, no more carbon, just neutron stuff.
Exactly, which lines up perfectly with everything material loses its form. It means the total breakdown of atomic structure as we know it. And notice the sequence.
The cloaks first, then the core.
Precisely. The Grail Message says the ethereal body, cloak, is affected first, then the spirit, core. Science shows the electron orbits, atoms, cloak, are crushed first, then the nucleus core. The parallel is uncanny.
And that loss of identity, the dissolution of the personal ego for the spirit.
It finds its echo in the matter, too. No longer different elements, no longer positively or negatively charged particles, but only a formless mass without any differentiation. Matter is stripped of all properties. It loses its identity, its structure.
You mentioned the idea of the cross in matter being obliterated.
Yes, that's a fascinating concept from the analysis. Think of our material world being structured by differentiation. Vertically, you have the elements, ordered by atomic number and weight. Horizontally, you have positive and negative charges. That forms a kind of conceptual cross underpinning material structure.
Okay, I see.
When all that structure collapses, when differentiation is lost, that cross that is inscribed in it is also obliterated. Its arms are no longer stretched outwards, it collapses into itself. The very blueprint of our known material world dissolves.
Wow. Okay, the Grail message also used words like torn apart and crushed for the bound ego. That sounds like more than just pressure, like some kind of violent motion.
Yes, and science backs this up. Black holes aren't just static points of infinite density. They're typically in inconceivable fast rotation.
Spinning incredibly fast.
Right. While the inner atomic motion has ceased, the outer rotational motion can increase to a raging whirlwind. It's a consequence of that broken equilibrium we talked about. And the Grail message calls this the sucking power of the vortex of disintegration.
And science sees this suction too.
Oh, yes. Volker Weidman confirms the black hole can suck up and tear away matter and light from the universe. That old coffee mill analogy comes to mind again. Beans drawn down, torn apart, crushed by the rotation. It captures that sense of violent vortical destruction.
Okay, and then there's the whole relativity aspect. Time behaving strangely near a black hole. Ziegel's description sounds completely paradoxical.
It does. Relativity makes things weird near extreme gravity. So, an observer falling in would apparently see the entire future of the outside universe flash before them in moments.
The whole future.
According to the theory, yes. Making their own fate seem even worse, seeing what they gambled away. The Grail message has a line. He is only stirred up so as to come to the dreadful recognition of his fall. It resonates with that sense of final, horrifying clarity.
But someone watching from outside sees it differently.
Completely. An outside observer sees the fall as taking an infinitely long time. The person seems to slow down and freeze at the edge, never quite crossing. Yet someone actually on the collapsing star, if they could survive and had a watch, might experience the whole process in maybe 10 minutes.
So future flashing by, infinite slowness, 10 minutes. How can they all be true? How does the spiritual view fit with this?
Well, the scientific time dilation effects relate mainly to the physical body's motion and the observer's frame of reference. The Grail message focuses on the spirit, the real ego, which it considers an independent mobile system.
So the spirit's experience is different.
Potentially, yes. A spirit that's rigidly bound to that dissolving matter, its own inner spiritual movement might have slowed or stopped. So the incredibly rapid outer movement of disintegration could be perceived from that static inner state as lasting a relatively infinite magnitude. It's about the internal perception versus the external chaos.
That's a lot to wrap your head around. This whole journey, collapse, disintegration. It sounds so final. But you mentioned earlier, maybe the end is also a beginning.
That's the crucial turn, yes. Both sources suggest disintegration isn't the absolute end. Some calculations in astrophysics suggest even the neutron star stage isn't final. Contraction might continue to a mathematical point, a singularity, which might then actually disappear from the universe.
Disappear, but the Grail message says nothing is truly destroyed.
Exactly, it clarifies. Disintegration is not the same as destruction. Nothing can be destroyed. It only relapses into a primeval state. It's a transformation, not annihilation.
And science is starting to see hints of this cycle, too.
It seems so. Volker Weidman points out that the Big Bang, the primeval detonation that started our universe, mathematically looks like almost a reverse of gravitational collapse.
A collapse running backwards.
Kind of. And John Taylor even speculates about white holes, the opposite of black holes. Things that give out matter and energy, create rather than consume. Maybe, he suggests, originating from another universe.
Wow. So the cycle.
The Grail message puts it very simply. Because it is overripe, the world of matter is now entering a period of disintegration and simultaneously drifting towards a new birth. Endings and beginnings are linked.
And for the spirit that didn't make it out, that got disintegrated, is there a rebirth for it too?
Yes, but a very different kind. The text says unconscious spiritual substance is again set free. It returns to the cycle, but not as a conscious individual. It's back to being an unconscious seed, needing to start a whole new course of development in a new part of the world. A complete reset to the very beginning of the spiritual journey.
Back to square one. Okay, so the big question, the one everyone probably asks, when? When does this disintegration happen?
Right. And the Grail message is clear. It's not simultaneous everywhere. The last, that is the final judgment, comes one day for each material celestial globe, but it does not take place simultaneously in the whole of creation.
Ah, so different stars, different galaxies, they reach this point at different times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that actually fits perfectly with scientific observation. It explains why astronomers see stars at all different stages of life right now. As Ditfurth said, they're at different distances, different ages, different generations. Each follows its own elapsing biography, according to these laws.
So it's an ongoing process throughout the cosmos, not one single future doomsday.
That seems to be the picture, yes. But the text also says that even within these vast timescales, there comes one definite year which is absolutely decisive for the necessary separation. There are critical moments.
Yeah. And scientists like John Taylor offer that sobering thought. Billions of years will pass, but in the end, the black holes will engulf us. It sounds inevitable, eventually.
From a purely material perspective, perhaps, but the Grail Message offers the spiritual path. Happy is the human spirit whose development permits it to extricate itself from matter in good time. Achieving that means salvation from the danger. It means entering into eternal life.
So the signs in the skies that science is observing.
They're presented not just as fascinating phenomena, but as that urgent admonition for humanity. These cosmic events suddenly become deeply relevant to our own choices, our own spiritual journey right now.
What an absolutely incredible deep dive this has been. We've really unpacked this idea of an eternal cycle, creation, disintegration, reformation, not just spiritual theory, but something science is now grappling with too. We've seen these amazing parallels. The degeneration through overripeness, the sudden collapse, that final separation of light and darkness, the loss of all structure and differentiation inside, even shrinking into that vortex. It's described in both the Grail Message and modern astrophysics.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. What was once perhaps inconceivable, this idea of matter disintegrating, has really become, through science, a measurable, calculable, physically incontestable reality. These star deaths aren't just random fireworks. They're quite natural processes in the grand scheme.
Which lets us see that idea of the Last Judgment in a new light, too, as a natural, lawful process affecting spirits still connected to matter undergoing these changes.
Exactly.
And this really brings it home for you, the listener. These aren't just abstract ideas for astronomers. John Taylor himself wrote that the black hole puts in question all the opinions which man has made about the world and the place he occupies in it. He even wondered if the spirit has to exist separately from matter during this collapse, or it just dies with the body.
And the Grail Message from Abrushin says much the same. Whatever cannot detach itself from matter will inevitably be drawn into the disintegration, whereby its form and whatever else is personal about it will be destroyed. The convergence is startling.
It really is. These detailed agreements between a spiritual text from, the 1920s and 30s, and discoveries made decades later with advanced tech, it's profound.
It really makes you pause. How could Abrushin describe these things, the density, the collapse, the separation, so long before radio telescopes and supercomputers allowed scientists to even glimpse them? It strongly suggests, a deeper reality, a fundamental lawfulness underlying everything, accessible perhaps through different means than just physical observation.
So, the final thought for you, listening. Given these signs in the skies, these echoes between deep spiritual insight on hard scientific discovery, what personal equilibrium or maybe over-ripeness might you be feeling in your own life right now? How could understanding these huge cosmic laws maybe inform your own path forward, not as some kind of threat, but maybe as an invitation to conscious growth and perhaps a timely ascent towards the light?